Hello everyone, this is Kalyan from Blackboxtech, and in today's episode I'll be showing you how you can create a real-time chart using chart.js, Angular and socket.io. So without further delay, let's get started. So first of all, I will be creating a node-based server with socket.io. So let's do that. I will be go to desktop, and then I will create a folder called socket server, and inside that I will use npm init and sy. So it will create a blank package.json file. I will open this folder to Visual Studio. Now the first thing first, I will install Express and socket.io. So npm install socket.io express and then dash save. So it will install socket.io and express as well, and also add an entry to the dependencies. Then I will create a file called server.js, that is our main server configuration file. So in the server.js, the first thing I will define my application using Express. So let's do that. Const app equal to require express, and also slice that. Then I will be using http require http dot create server, and then I will pass our app here. So the next thing, before adding to socket, I'll just use app.get. So whenever someone hit the root, then what I'll do, I will just write a function. I will use request and response, and whenever someone hit this slash URL, I'll be sending response dot send. I'll be using a h1 tag here. Just in hello world. The next thing I'll do http dot listen, and the port I'll be going to use 3000. So the first is port, and then the callback function, I'll just using console.log listening on port 3000. Okay, so let's try out our first server. So I will just use node server.js, and it should listen on port 3000, and we will see this message hello world. So let's try that. Localhost 3000. Okay, so our server is running, and also we can see this console.log and also this line. Next thing, I'll be implementing socket.io. So let's do that. Constant io equal to require socket.io, and I'll be using http with that. Okay, Now um, when in any connection added with this IO, we will send some data to them. So to do that, let's use that IO dot on. So we need to create an event, so our client will use that event to get the data back. Okay, so when someone client will connect to this socket, then if the client is listening to the event, so we can emit some data back to the client. So I'll give a so IO dot connection. We'll emit a socket, and then we'll just do console.log for now. I'll say client connected. So let's close our server. Let's see if there is any error. Node server.js. So there is no client connected, so we will not see that console.log. So let's stay here and we'll try to create our Angular application, and then we'll connect with this one. Okay. So now let's again go to our terminal. I'll be using ng new command, and then we'll use live chart. I'll create an application called live chart using Angular CLI. Router required no. I'll be using CSS. I will open this project into Visual Studio Code. So the first thing, I'll be installing chart.js here because we'll be using that, and also we need socketio client so that our client application can interact with the server socket. So I'll be installing that first. Npm install chart.js, and then I will also write save. So also I will install socketio client, socket.io/client, and also put save here. So I'll be using this client in our service file. So let's install that. Okay, so once it's done, I'll be opening my app.component.ts. So this is our title. First I will import chart.js. So let's import that. Import chart from chart.js, and then I'll be using on init, so let's add that on init, and then implements on init here, then ng on init, and inside that I'll be creating my first chart. So this is a simple chart I'm using. So first of all, this is the chart, and I will be adding constructor called chart, a variable here, and this dot chart equal to new chart. I'm using this will be the ID of the canvas I'll be adding shortly, and then type bar, there are some options, and for data we'll be using data sets. So, and also label, there are 8 labels item here, and for data sets also I'm using type bar, label, and then data is an array of 8 numbers. Okay, and then the next step is I'll be adding that into, I'll be just clearing out all the things. I'm creating a div. I'll add inline style with 100%, and inside the div I'll be adding a canvas, and the ID I will give as canvas. So this is the ID. So let's start our local server. Duplicate identifier on in it. Yeah, so okay, so let's open the browser, and in another tab localhost 4200. So you can see this is the chart. The chart has been generated with the data. So this is the 8 labels, and based on your data this has been created. Now the next thing we'll do is I will create a service to listen for data back from our socket server. So I will use ng generate service, and I will name it socket. So inside our socket service I'll be importing star as IO from socket dot IO dash client. Okay, so the next thing is within our class I'll just define socket as any, and within our constructor I'll just create this dot socket equal to IO, and I will pass, because our socket application is running on port 3000, so I will pass the URL here. So our client will listen to the 3000 of our socket server. Now I will create a method called listen, and then inside that listen I will pass an event name. So this is the variable, and this will be a string. So what we'll do, it will actually return an observable which will subscribe for our app component. So let's create that. Return new observable, and then I will use subscriber. So here I will this dot socket, I'm expecting an event from socket and which I will listen to. So right now I will pass it from the event name from our app component. So here I will use the same event name. Whenever we call this method using our service, I will pass the name from our app component, and that will be used here. So pass that event name here. event name, and then I will get the data back. And then I will use our subscriber dot next. I will pass on the data. Okay, so from app component I'll be using our service.listen method. I will pass a name of the event which I need to add into our socket server, and once our socket server emits that event, that we will get the data back from the server, which I'm going to use in our app component. So now let's move to our app component. So in our chart, this is the static data, but I want this data to be emitted from our server, and also this number I need random numbers every time this should return from our server, so our chart will update automatically. So for that, so let's right now this data need to be returned from our server. So let's go back to our socket server. So I'll be creating a function here. So function data update, I'm giving a name of data update, and then I will call this function inside this, so I will expect this socket to be there. So the argument will be socket, and then I will use socket dot emit and the event name, say the name I'm giving data update, and whenever the event happens, I will return a random array with 8 numbers. Okay, so inside our go to app component TS, so I need this data to be random, right? So let's go back to our server. So I'll be using ES6 array.from. So array dot from, what I need a 8 numbers, random numbers. So I'll pass length of 8, and then our function will call. I'll be using math.random, math.floor, and inside that I'll be using math.random. Into 4. Math.random into 40. So this will return a 8 length array with a random number every time this will be emitting. So I want every 2 seconds this emit will happen. Our client will listen to that, and then it will get back the data every time. So what I'll do, I'll just use set timeout method, and I'll be calling the same function here, data update, and we'll also pass this socket, because otherwise this will list required socket and then it will emit. And the time I will give a, say, 2 seconds. Now I'll be calling this function here. So same data update, and I will pass socket. Okay, so I will just restart my server. Now I'll go back to my client application. So inside app component, now our service is ready. So inside our component, I'll be importing our service. So import, so the socket service from dot slash socket dot service. Now I need a constructor. So inside constructor, I'll be using private v equal to our socket service. Okay. Now what I'll do, I will simply call our service. So this dot service dot our service name here is listen. So listen, and what is the event name we have created in our server, so we need to use that. So our event name is data update, so I will pass that. So data update is our listen event, and then subscribe. So in the socket service, we need to use so this observable, it's not auto imported, so let's import that. Observable from so I will subscribe to it, and then I will use response any, and then I will get back the data. So let's first do a console.log and check what we are getting back. So let's start our server. Let's see what is the error here. Refuse to load the URL because it was the following content policy. Let's see if our node application is running. So now our application is running. You can see our application is listening to the socket service, and socket service is returning every 2 seconds a new set of array. And if you open our socket service, you can see the client is connected, the message is printed. So whenever there is a new connection, we have added a console log, so client connected. So one client connected right now. Okay, and we are getting back the data in every 2 seconds. Now the next item is we'll be using this data which is returning from socket client. Okay, so I will just comment out this line. Now here what we'll do, we'll just use this dot chart dot data. So here chart data, data sets, and then data. So this dot chart dot data set data sets, and within these data sets I'll be using that 0, the first item, and then data equal to response. Another thing we need to do, so we are setting the data, but every time to update that, what we need to do, this dot chart dot update, this update method need to be there. Now save it, go back to our browser, and you can see now every time the data coming back from the server, we are sending that data to the chart, and the chart we are also adding this update method, and the real-time chart is working. So I hope you like this video, and if you like, please do share, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. We'll come up with a new video next week. Thanks a lot. Till then, bye.